Okay, today I'm going to be showing you how to create a function in Python. A function is pretty much a block of code that executes something. And today we're going to be creating a function that adds two numbers. So it's pretty much a beginner's tutorial. So to create a function, we first have to define it. So we're going to say def, which stands for define, and then we have to name the function something. We're just going to call it add numbers because that's really simple. So define add numbers, and then we're going to add two parentheses and then a colon. So right now, we've actually created a function. And usually you can leave the inside of these parentheses blank, but we're going to do an extra step and add parameters. Parameters are basically like just like variables or things that you want to throw inside of a function. So inside of this function, we want to have the parameters number 1 and number 2 because we're going to be adding two things, right? We're going to write number 1 as our first parameter and number 2 as our second parameter. And then functions usually return things. And so right here, we're just going to return the value of number 1 plus number 2. So now theoretically, when we call this function add numbers, we should get the value number 1 plus number 2. But how do we actually call this function? Well, it's pretty simple. You just write the name of the function, which is add numbers, and then you put the parentheses. And now we gotta fill in these parameters, right? Because number 1, we can't just add number 1 plus number 2. We're not gonna get an actual number. Like we don't know what those values are, but we can actually replace them. So for number 1, we're just gonna use number 3 because it doesn't really matter. And for number 2, we can like use 4. Doesn't matter either. And now theoretically, when you run this code, add numbers, parentheses 3, 4 parentheses, you should get a return value of 7. So we're just going to label this output, and we've pretty much created a variable called output here. So output should equal to 7. And now to actually show this output in the terminal, we're going to use a print statement. And print statement is pretty much just, it's basically what it says. It prints stuff onto the terminal. So we're going to print output. And now when we do this, we should get a sum of 5 in the terminal right here. So I'm going to go ahead and save and then run this code. And as you can see, we get the number 7 right here. So basically, to summarize it, you create a function, and then we added parameters, which is number 1 and number 2. And then we're going to return number 1 plus number 2. And then we call this function right here, and we replace these parameters with actual numbers. And then we set this function call to a variable, which is called output. And this output is the return statement number 1 plus number 2, which is the sum of 3 plus 4, which is 7. And now we're actually just going to print output onto the terminal. So that is how you create a simple function to add two numbers.